When you think about grief and how challenging it is for an adult to deal with it, it's far more challenging for a child because it's not even in their thought process. As an adult, we know it's part of life, but kids don't even think that way. Some of them have a very challenging time. Some of them will act out in school. Some of them will start to do drugs, and in very severe cases, some of them will take their own life. Well, in this video, you're going to meet Susana Morell. She started her own program that helps children to deal with grief so they can avoid getting into some of this other stuff like drugs and bad habits and things like that. But Susana has a great story as well. In fact, I'm going to say that one of the reasons why Susana is doing what she's doing today is because of her past and what she had to deal with. Unfortunately, was not captured in this video. We had such great conversation, which you'll see. So I'm going to have her back on Resilience sometime in the future. But this video is fantastic. Susana is incredible, and her services, what she's doing today to help kids, is making an incredible difference in the lives of children and families as well. So enjoy the video. I always ask, what do people want to drink? And you're the first person who has chosen a beer that I like. But here's the shiner. Are you ready?
Cheers.
1, 2, 3. All right. So I'm here with Susana Morell. And Susana, tell them a little bit about what you do. But I will tell you, in my opinion, one of the reasons I wanted you here is because you're doing something that in one way is unique, but there is such a huge need for it. I can't believe the schools are not putting a whole bunch of money towards this. What's going on with the kids?
Yeah, unfortunately, we've had issues with children and mental health for years. And there's no one solution, but I've created a program that supports children through grief and loss. And a lot of times you'd be surprised that I will get pushback from administrators and counselors, and they're saying, well, we really don't have a lot of students that are experiencing, burying a loved one or having someone die. And I like to remind them, grief is not just about that unfortunate situation. Grief is any time a child experiences disruption in their life. So, you can have mom and dad decide they want to, divorce. You can have big sister, big brother go away to college. You could have the family pet, pass on. You can have grandma or grandpa that have become elderly move into the home, and that changes the family dynamic, and now they're, ill. So that causes a disruption in the child's routine, and you better believe that they're gonna have a negative impact on them. And children don't know how to be able to, express how this is, to be able to discuss it in a healthy way. Right. So they go back to their innate responses of what did they do when they didn't like something. As a baby, we cried and we threw a tantrum to be able to get attention.
Right.
So that's what these children are doing.
You're saying children. About what age do you work with?
I work with children ages 6 to 17. I also work with adults and families in the office.
You work with the adults, so if you're working with a kid, do you also work with the family to explain what's going on?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
6 or 17, so you said grief, and again, you explain what grief is, but aren't there signs? I know they're probably hard to see for a lot of people, right? Because a lot of us, we don't even see it, and we're going to talk about how you started this. But aren't there signs that they can look for? Or aren't there some, I'm saying signs, don't kids start to act out, they start to get out of there?
Absolutely. So one of the first things that when I do my trainings for teachers, for counselors, for school aides, crisis intervention specialists, I bring out a questionnaire and I have them revert back to when they were age 8 to 12. Right. And there's 10 questions on there. And for example, it'll ask, have you moved twice since you can recall? Right. Are you struggling to talk about your feelings? Are you not feeling motivated? Do you have the leave me alone attitude? Has your appetite been affected? And are you not getting adequate sleep, or are you tossing and turning at night? And most importantly, are your grades being affected by changes? And so it breaks my heart when children that are identified that I get to work with, they answer all 10 yeses. So it isn't until they are taken aside and they come to the program that now they're going to be able to say, oh my gosh, I've acknowledged, and I'm being heard that I've been struggling and I didn't know that how it was affecting me. So those are the things that I always ask to watch out for. Why are they disengaged? Why is it that 1 year all-star football player, basketball player, really good at baseball or cheerleading, and then all of a sudden over the summer you come back and this child is so disengaged from everything that this just doesn't happen overnight.
That's right.
So it's usually a buildup, and finally what happens is that they just have lost all hope and they just feel like, what is my purpose?
And what happens from there? Because I know that.
Yeah, so when they do feel like that and they are referred to the program, I'm able to rebuild their life and to give them a skill set and to remind them that they do have a purpose and it's a choice. You can continue to, process your frustrations or unresolved hurt and heartache and sadness through bad habits, or you can learn this skill set and process in a healthy way and get back to, your true potentials. Because no child ever wants to misbehave or have inappropriate behaviors. They don't want to cuss. They don't want to be sneaking out at night. They don't want to be doing drugs. They don't want to be promiscuous. But unfortunately, that's what they gravitate towards because they feel so lost. It's filling that void. And I don't want children to believe that those are the only answers. The saddest part about it is when they feel that they should try to attempt to take their life, or they do. Yes. Or they do take their life. As unfortunately, I personally was affected by it. I lost my nephew at the age of 17. He felt that was his only, his only out. And that will forever break my heart that a child will, because he was a child, 17
man.
Yeah, he hasn't experienced life, that to really believe that. And so it leaves you with a lot of unanswered questions. What could we have done differently? What didn't we notice? But aside from all of that, it's all about being, that human decency, acknowledging the child's hurt. So,
what was his, if you don't, let's go there if you don't mind. Because
sure.
First of all, that's how you got your start.
Yes.
So before you started doing this, because again, everyone I interviewed, when they're doing something and there's usually something in their life that turned them. And now some people go the wrong way. Obviously, I don't interview them, but their life kind of falls apart. They lose a job or a loved one, but then I meet people like you that had something really traumatic happen, which I do want to ask you some details about that. But then you turned it around and you created this nonprofit called
Shielding Hearts.
Shielding Hearts. Before we even talk about that, let's get to your nephew if you don't mind. What happened in his life that changed his?
Well, unfortunately, my older brother was not a responsible father. So whenever he would come around, it was always empty promises, disappointing him, making him feel less than, making him feel rejected. My brother, by the time he was on his third marriage, basically treated, my nephew like, he could easily be discarded whenever he wanted to. And that has I'm sure it struck him to his core and broke his heart on so many levels, because here he was, his first child, his son, and to be mistreated in that way. And I'm really big on that. If you really love somebody, you don't mistreat them.
That's right. And did he start acting out? Were there any kind of, looking back, do you see any signs? And I want to ask you about his mom.
Yeah, absolutely. So, his mom, she would really try to look for my brother. She would plead with my brother, like, you need to be a positive influence in his life. I can't handle, he's a boy, and you need to be able to, you had a bond, and that you just don't walk away from a bond that you created. And so she had her brothers and her father try to provide him that guidance and insight, but it was always obvious that my nephew yearned for my brother to do the right thing.
Yeah, for his father.
For his father.
Was he then starting to act out in school, or just was because his character was changing, right?
Unfortunately, yes. So he got diagnosed to be bipolar, and he fell into the wrong hands and started selling drugs and trying to rehabilitate himself. And I think it just spiraled out of control. He just felt like there was just no answers. There's no coming back. I think when you get so far down that rabbit hole, there's just no turning back. And no matter if the interventions happen, most of the time you fall through the cracks. There is no follow through, because now looking back, and I've talked to counselors that tried to support him, there was no follow through. You just don't do the sessions and then move on to the next case. You've got to be able to have a follow through. And so he fell through the cracks and the system failed him.
Do you mind if I ask you, do you remember, obviously you remember you got the phone call. Who called you? Your sister-in-law? Who called you?
My sister-in-law called me, and I didn't, it was horrible. The only way I can describe it is there was this burning feeling in my heart that I was just like, please don't tell me what you're telling me is true. I just did not want to believe it.
Yeah.
And she was crying, and she said, no, it is true, and this has happened. And so it broke my heart on so many levels, because you just don't ever want to be on the receiving end of that. Most importantly, not only because he was family and because I loved him as much as I did, but because you just think, wow, the world has lost a really special individual, because he had so many potentials.
17 years old.
Yeah,
Man.
he was starting to turn it around. He was starting to show interest in wanting to go be an art major and leave South Texas and go to New York. And so that's what breaks my heart every day, that he never got to accomplish his dreams.
And how does something like that affect, again, if you don't talk too much about your brother if you don't want to, but how does that affect your brother or your sister-in-law? Because even your sister-in-law, even though she was trying to do stuff, she probably didn't realize how close he was. She probably had no idea that he was looking to take his own life. There's a bunch of other stuff going on, but you don't think that's even a possibility.
Right.
And then when that happens, I would imagine that a parent can't help but to take blame. And again, there's no blame because they didn't know. But is that a natural reaction for a parent to say?
It is a natural reaction that you think, how is it that my son felt he had to hang himself and I have to come home to find him, because that's how she found him.
Oh,
and my younger nephew to help take him down and then call.
Man.
So it's just, it's so unfortunate. And yes, there is always to question, what did I do wrong? And just to let her know that ultimately for anybody who takes their life, it isn't what we did wrong. It's at the end of the day, that is the choice that they choose.
Yeah,
and
sure.
so you have to separate from that. You have to realize that. As far as my brother, well, it didn't change him. You would hope that after losing your son and having to bury a child, that you would want to clean up your act or try to be a better father for his son that is surviving and his daughter, but no, completely did nothing. So that's even more unfortunate.
Wow. And what were you doing at the time? Because you were not doing this. You were not doing Shielding Hearts.
No, I was not. I was working for a community program that supported, whenever youth age out, the foster system, whenever they age out at 18, they're kind of left, once again, kind of to fall through the cracks. Like, they've been given counseling and resources all through while they've been in school, but once they turn 18, it's kind of like you're on your own. And maybe they don't have the skill set. Maybe they don't know how to advocate. Maybe they're still going to need that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a foster child can go through 12 to 15 homes before they're 18. So the program that I was a part of, we were able to take in counseling services into, at the time it was North Harris, now it's Lone Star, and HCC, and provide free counseling to transitionate youth.
And then this happens.
And
tell me how you started Shielding Hearts.
I had always had a vision of wanting to be able to make a creative counseling program. And when this happened, it derailed me, it devastated me. And I think what I did is I said, well, I am a counselor, I am trained, I do have my master's in clinical psychology, I specialize in marriage and family therapy. So you basically have to tell yourself, did you invest all of that time and energy and financial aspect of it and sacrifices? At the time I was a single mom, educating myself away from my son to just give up all hope? Absolutely not. So to honor my nephew, I put pen to paper and I just broke down the dialogue of how to be able to, you know, encourage, motivate, give back children their self-worth, to empower them, and to be able to get them to exit a program feeling like they are going to be, they not only recover from whatever setback, but that they now have a skill set to apply to better represent themselves, communicate in a more effective manner, healthy manner, to have healthy coping skills, and to just really live life for what it is to live life.
Yeah.